Imagine a quiet college town, the kind you see in movies. Students moving into their dorms, filled with the excitement of a new school year. Now, imagine that same town gripped by a fear so intense it feels like a nightmare you can't wake up from. In August 1990, Gainesville, Florida, became the hunting ground for one of America's most terrifying serial killers. This isn't a movie plot. This is the real chilling story that would later inspire the iconic horror film, Scream. Welcome to EerieDoseYT. Tonight, we uncover the grim reality of the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Rolling. Before the terror descended, Gainesville was the picture of youthful optimism. The University of Florida campus was buzzing with energy in late August 1990. Students were returning from summer break, reconnecting with friends, and preparing for classes. The air was thick with promise and the warm, humid embrace of a Florida summer. It was a place where doors were often left unlocked, a community that felt safe and removed from the darker aspects of the world. But in just a matter of days, this idyllic image would be shattered, replaced by an atmosphere of paranoia and dread. A shadow was creeping into this sunny college town, and no one knew it was already there. The nightmare began on August 24, 1990. In a quiet off-campus apartment, two freshmen, Christina Powell and Sonia Larson, were found brutally murdered. They had just moved in, their lives full of potential, cut short in the most horrific way. The crime scene was deeply disturbing, a level of violence that shocked even veteran law enforcement. At first, it was treated as a tragic, isolated incident. But the very next day, the killer struck again. Another student, Krista Hoyt, was found in her apartment. The sheer brutality and the specific, chilling staging of the scenes began to paint a terrifying picture. This wasn't random violence. This was the work of a predator. A serial killer was on the loose in Gainesville. Fear spread through the campus like a virus. The news of the three murders sent a shockwave of panic across the student body. The idyllic college town transformed overnight. Students who had just arrived were now packing their bags, desperate to leave. Over 700 students withdrew from the university almost immediately. Those who stayed lived in a state of constant anxiety. Doors were triple locked, windows were barricaded. People started sleeping in groups for safety, turning their dorm rooms and apartments into makeshift fortresses. The streets, once bustling with life, became eerily quiet after dark. The killer struck twice more, claiming the lives of Tracy Pauls and Manny Taboda. 5 students murdered in just 4 days. Gainesville was a town under siege, held captive by an unseen monster. So who was this monster haunting Gainesville? His name was Danny Rolling. To the public, he was a ghost, a faceless terror. But in reality, he was a drifter with a long and violent history. Born into an abusive home, Rolling's life was a downward spiral of crime and instability. He had a criminal record stretching back years, including armed robbery. He was a deeply disturbed individual, claiming to have a split personality, an evil alter ego named Gemini. Before arriving in Gainesville, he had already committed a triple homicide in his hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana. He was a predator who thrived on inflicting pain and terror, and the unsuspecting college town of Gainesville became his ultimate stage. He saw the students not as people, but as symbols, targets for the rage that had consumed his entire life. This is where the story takes a turn into pop culture history. The Gainesville slayings had a profound impact on a screenwriter named Kevin Williamson. He was watching a documentary about the case when he became captivated by the sheer terror of it all. He was particularly struck by the idea of an unseen killer who could be anyone, who terrorized his victims with a sense of horrifying randomness. Williamson imagined a killer who would call his victims, taunting them, playing with them before the attack. This concept, born from the real-life fear that Danny Rolling instilled, became the central premise for the movie Scream. The ringing phone, the masked killer, The sense that the horror movie rules were playing out in real life. It all has its roots in the tragic events that unfolded in Gainesville. The real horror inspired one of the most famous horror films of all time. While the terror seemed endless, the hunt for the Gainesville Ripper was relentless. Investigators were working around the clock, chasing down thousands of leads. The break in the case came from an unrelated crime. Danny Rolling was arrested for a grocery store robbery in a nearby town, shortly after the final murders. Initially, police didn't connect him to the Gainesville slayings. But as evidence mounted, including tool marks from the crime scenes and eventually DNA, the pieces fell into place. Faced with the overwhelming evidence, Danny Rolling confessed. He described the murders in chilling detail, confirming he was the monster who had plunged the city into darkness. The unseen predator finally had a face, and the hunt was over. The arrest of Danny Rolling brought a sense of relief to Gainesville, but the scars ran deep. The nightmare had ended, but the trauma remained. The community held vigils, mourning the 5 bright lives that had been stolen. The University of Florida created a permanent memorial to honor the victims. Christina Powell, Sonia Larson, Krista Hoyt, Tracy Pauls, and Manny Taboda. The events of August 1990 forever changed the town, serving as a permanent reminder of the fragility of safety and the real-world evil that can shatter it. Danny Rolling was convicted and remained on death row until his execution in 2006, closing the final chapter on one of Florida's darkest crimes. The story of the Gainesville Ripper is a chilling look at real-life horror and its unexpected influence on fiction. Thank you for joining us on EerieDoseYT. If these true stories that lurk in the shadows intrigue you, be sure to subscribe and like this video to support the channel. Real horror, real stories, real-life events that actually happened. This is EerieDoseYT. See you in the next video, because we will be talking about the next sinister horror film, which is The Watcher.